Hi, it's Jasmin. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmin St. All aboard! Welcome to a brand new episode of Krazy Train Podcast. I decided to get a little bit old school with this episode, so I couldn't do it without bringing on the actual king of old school, Steve Corino. Thank you so much for joining me today, Steve. I feel like it's been forever from the last time I've seen you, and your hair has only gotten thicker.
I don't know what happens, you know. Like I was telling you before, this time last year I was bald, and now I have a full head of hair, and I don't know what to do with it. And I drive a convertible, so like my hair goes flying all over the place. So yeah, it's like a third midlife crisis.
What, with a convertible?
Yeah, well, everything. Yeah, my hair, this. I go to Disney once a week by myself. But we're a minute into it, and it's become a therapy session for me.
Look, sometimes these are therapy sessions either way, but one thing I will say, I feel as though wrestling is another midlife crisis, like participating in it in the ring. What do you think about that?
Oh, I don't know. For me, it was like a kid's dream. Like I wanted to be a wrestler since I was 8 years old. So like to me, I was, I have like the biggest case of Peter Pan syndrome, where like my face is grown up, but like I haven't grown up. So it's like, I'm still that little kid that watched wrestling and then got to do it and now teach it. And yeah, for me, it's the little kid in me. Keeps me young-ish.
Well, here's a question for you, and I'm sure some people know this, and of course, maybe my listeners do not. When did you start wrestling, and how did you go to the ECW school?
No, no. So I was born in Canada, but when I was a kid, I moved to the Philadelphia area. So wrestling was always big in Philadelphia, and from the moment my parents got cable television, I knew right away. Like when I turned on wrestling, I was like, I saw Tommy Wildfire Rich, and I was like, oh my goodness, I want to be a wrestler. And I wasn't a wrestler in school; it's a baseball player, and so I did nothing to prepare. And I found a wrestling school about 80 miles west of Philadelphia when I was 20 years old, and then trained there. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm like naive and young, even though I'm like 20. Um, most 20-year-olds are naive. But yeah, and I started there, and I worked on the independents, everything from like putting up rings to managing to getting beat up, because like when I first started, I was 165 pounds and everything like that, and I had my growth spurt later in life, and then yeah, so by the time that I got to ECW was, they were cooking, they were the big thing in not just the Northeast, but all over the country. So it was pretty cool because it was only 45-minute drive to the ECW arena for me.
Yeah, that was quite the place back then. It's so different now. It's been so gentrified with an extremely expensive bar, and there's like real food there without rodents on it. My God.
So I was just there in November with NXT, and all my guys are coming up to me. They're like, Coach, is this how it was? I was like, no, it was disgusting. It was gross. Yeah, like, there are people bleeding all backstage. There were like, you would literally see a rat run across the room and no one would bat an eye. Like it was wild. And yeah, I'm like, this is beautiful compared to what we did.
Yeah, a rat, like a ring rat or like a real rat?
No, like a real rat.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there were a lot of those back then. But I feel as though it's just when people gentrify things, they gentrified the Rainbow Room in Los Angeles in Hollywood, and it's so different now. It's like I want to see the filthy bathroom with the door that's coming down. Now it's been fixed. Like all the fun is gone. So speaking of wrestlers, when you grew up watching wrestling, like my top three were Jimmy Snuka. I love The Ultimate Warrior, and of course, Hulk Hogan. My favorite managers were Sherry Martel, Miss Elizabeth, and of course, women. Who are your top three favorite wrestlers?
Oh, my top three favorite wrestlers would be when I first started, um, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Tully Blanchard, Eddie Gilbert. They were like my three favorites with the a million people tied for fourth. And my favorite managers, Bobby the Brain Heenan was amazing. JJ Dillon was amazing. And then I would go a tie between Gary Hart and Sherry Martel. Like Sherry Martel will never get enough credit for like just how amazing she was, not just as a manager, but as a wrestler. Like she was awesome.
Yeah, I think she was one of my favorites. That was one of the first mixed tag matches I did was with Sherry, and I was scared shitless of her, but she was one of the coolest people. So that was one thing off my bucket list. Do you have any bucket list matches you did not ever have?
I got to do a lot of like dream matches from like when I was a kid. Like I don't think like the internet would have been like, oh, that was a dream match, but like my dream matches, like I've got to wrestle almost everybody. I didn't get to wrestle Ric Flair at all. I would have loved to wrestle Randy Orton once. Like that guy is just absolutely amazing. And ooh, a bucket list one. So it would have been impossible because he passed away as like I was a rookie. But I would have loved to wrestle Eddie Gilbert. Like that would have been, he was like him and Tully Blanchard, but more Eddie was like everything I based being a heel on and everything like that. I would think like, oh, what would Eddie do in this situation? And then how can I, step over the line a little bit more than he would? And yeah, but yeah, he would have been probably my number one.
Yeah, ECW is really a very special place. I feel as though it was the island of misfit toys. Does that sound correct? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's the best way to describe it.
And one thing Todd Gordon told me a few weeks ago on the podcast, and this is actually true, is the characters in ECW wrestling were not characters. They were their authentic selves. Would you say that was another accuracy as well?
I would say for the majority, right? My character and who I am as a person were totally opposite, but I learned there how to like live the character while basically the you're on the clock. Whether it was like from the time you checked out of the hotel to the time that you checked into another hotel, like I had to be like king of old school and yeah, heel and mean and just an ass. But like when I got back to my room, I'm the guy that would read a book and not really go out, and I wasn't a big partier, so it was I was I was opposite. But a lot of people believe that like I was the jerk that I was trying to portray who I was. But I would say a lot of those guys lived their gimmick and they became it. It was just more of not their gimmick. It was just an extension of their personality. And I think it made him believable. Where it's like I had to work on it, but like Bubba Ray Dudley is Bubba Ray Dudley. Like when I see him one day, I'm like, wow, that's that guy. And like he's the Bully Ray character is just an extension of who he is, and it's amazing that people can amp up that their real personality to 10 or 100, or in Sandman's case, he dialed it back a little bit. Um, that's an amazing thing to do. I never was able to do it in it like uh, because like no one wanted to see like nerd me or Disney dad me or something like that. So like I had to really work hard at it.
It's funny because every wrestler I know, especially like deathmatch wrestlers, since I've been working so much with that now, loves Disney. What is it? Is it because of the escape, the fantasy? Is it like going into Pirates of the Caribbean and you kind of like lose yourself in that whole fantasy? Well, here I am in Pirates of the Caribbean, hardy har har. Like, what is it with Disney and wrestlers?
So I think a lot of people don't understand that like the deathmatch wrestlers, like they go out there and they do all this crazy stuff, but when you talk to them, they are the sweetest human beings ever, right? They're nice and they're sensitive and I think like we're all big kids at heart, so like we love Disney and stuff like that, and myself included, like you go out and massacre your body, but like you find this joy on Pirates of the Caribbean or Space Mountain or taking a picture with Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. Like we're just little kids, but like deathmatch wrestlers, they are just the nicest people. It makes it harder for me to watch their matches once I meet them and get to know them, and I'm like. Now I'm worried for their safety. Like I'm like, oh, please don't hurt yourself like that because you take like a Pondo or a Necro Butcher and stuff like that, and you get them out of the ring, and you're like, wow, they are insane in the ring, and then you talk to them, and they're like, oh, they're the coolest people too. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's like when I was just in Japan with Pondo and Dale Patricks, they wanted to go to haunted houses. Now, here's a bit of unknown facts. I am scared shitless of haunted houses that you have to walk into. So I'm there at the ticket station. I'm like, oh God, please, this better not be a walk-in. It's a walk-in, but it was shut down. Thank God. So we went on one of those drive-through ones, but I kept my eyes closed the whole time.
Yeah, I don't like being scared either. Once a year we do this NXT thing where like everybody goes to like a haunted house or a SeaWorld.
No.
And I think it's more the rib on me because like I don't like being scared and I almost pee myself halfway through the house. Like it's bad. Like I totally feel you on that one. I don't like being scared.
I think one of the worst elements in wrestling, especially with coming up from our generation, I feel as though everyone was so much more closer knit. And the worst part are the deaths.
Yeah, the deaths are like you never prepare for it because like you go to wrestling school, you meet all these amazing people, and you just think oh, they'll just be around forever. And like even when they have issues and they're not in their right state of mind, you're like they'll pull through, and then you get to a certain age, and I look around and I'm like, oh man, that guy was great. He's been gone 10 years and this and that, and it's just something you never get used to, and I don't think I'll ever get used to it. Like last year, like when we lost, Kevin Sullivan, I was like, that guy's like a second dad to me. I thought like he'd outlive me, and you just whatever age it happens, it's just it's a piece of you gone because you get to have so many memories with them.
Yeah, it's a really sad thing for sure. So the last time I saw you, I think we were in Texas or North Carolina at a convention, and you had glasses on, like you looked really, really responsible. What were you doing then for work?
Do you remember what year it was? It wasn't that long ago, was it?
2015, then
Oh,
I think 2016.
I was still working for Ring of Honor at the time. I've worn glasses since I was 12 years old. I finally went to contacts probably 3 years ago, and I love it. Um, but yeah, when I have my glasses on, I look like a dad. And but yeah, 2015 and 16, I was still in Ring of Honor. I was getting over neck surgery, and then by 2017, that's when I started down at NXT as a coach and a producer, and I've been there ever since. It's wild.
Yeah, they have some really good products there. I think I have friends that actually work there. My friend Damien Sandow, or I don't know what his ring name is. I just know his real name, and a couple of others. But I love the product. I think it's so great. We're going to get to where wrestling is at in a second because with ECW, I want to go back to the feuds. Um, there was so much great storytelling, and I feel as though so many companies nowadays try to replicate that on the indie scene. So number one, do you think this is something that could ever be replicated?
I totally don't think it'll be something. It can be just because that was 25 years ago. The world was different. Everything aligned perfectly. Besides the end, but how ECW rode that wave and broke the rules and broke the mold of what wrestling had become for the decade or two before, and now it's so hard because the stuff that we got away with in ECW, like they can't get away with anymore. We were truly the land of misfit toys, doing the stuff that we did on television, the music, the angles, we were truly the alternative, and we were the punks of pro wrestling. We didn't stand for authority. Uh, we were behind Paul, 1000%, even when times were tough, so it was, that was lightning in a bottle. But like, there's definitely so much room for alternatives out there. There's going to be a company that figures it out, and they find what the trend is in music, pop culture, and all that stuff, and they'll ride that wave. So I don't think you can replicate what ECW did, but I think there's always going to be something new eventually, that takes the business by storm, and makes everybody turn their head and say, well, "What the hell are they doing over there?" And I think that's cool. One of the cool things about wrestling is it's always evolving.
Are you looking for a safe way to bet online where there is something for everyone, including yourself? Then go to betonline.ag, where I am sure you will find something. Don't forget, it's betonline.ag for the most variety and the safest way to bet online. Yeah, I mean, there's some really great collaborations that are coming up, I know of, that I'm not going to talk about. But I think it's going to go over really big because of the different minds behind it. But I don't know if ECW could survive in cancel culture. Definitely in
Oh,
shop culture, but
absolutely
not
not.
cancel culture.
Yeah, and yeah, it's totally different world. Yeah, there's no way that if you put ECW's product on in this day and age, that it would totally be taken differently than it is. It's like, watching a movie that we thought was hilarious in the early 80s. And now, a young person watches it today and they'll be like, how did you laugh at this? This is this. And then it's just, the world's it's just different.
Yeah, that's for sure. What would you say your top favorite feud is that you were involved in ECW?
Yeah, no, if I had to pick one, and it's the one I always pick, it's the feud I had with the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. It was the time that I got made as a character, as a wrestler, as a personality, and it was a moment in time that like, changed my life literally overnight. When I took that microphone and I'm with Dusty and we're doing it, and it was literally planned to be a dark thing. Like, we were never going to show it, we were never going to do anything with it. It was supposed to be for one night, and it happens, in 25 and a half years later. One, it's mostly what anybody that remembers me knows, talks about, but it was that moment where um, I became like a top player in ECW, and so that one I just have so many fond memories. And the little kid in me, going back to that, was I used to go to the Philadelphia Civic Center every month and cheer Dusty on and this, and years later I'm standing in the middle of the ring with him and I have a microphone and I'm trying not to stutter because I have to be king of old school and not, oh my goodness, Mr. Dream, can I have your autograph, guy? So that was definitely my favorite by far.
Yeah, it sounds like it was your defining moment in wrestling.
Absolutely.
So I watch a lot of stuff nowadays, like AEW, NXT, GCW, like everything. So one thing I notice that there's a lack of, like a lot of places, is storytelling. Where do you think the storytelling may have disappeared in time? I feel like it's just people trying to get spots in, and some companies are lacking consistent storylines.
I think it's a sign of the times, to be honest, and I think it's the idea of, and I can only speak from where I see wrestling from, working for NXT is, we're bell to bell, we're trying to sell excitement, and I imagine AEW is too, and stuff like that. And then your vignettes and everything like that are trying to piece together the story, and then we pay it off in the match. I don't know if it always translates, but that's the goal. Um, and I also think it's such a world of everything's going so fast, everybody's so fast, so that you have to just keep putting action, action, action. Like, I don't know if anybody wants to see Steve Carino wrestle a 20-minute match where I'm slowing down and picking back up and slowing down again. Um, it's a newer time of trying to sell exciting in-ring action, and then trying to sell the characters while you're in your vignettes and the basis for the feud and stuff like that. In I think especially over the last 5 6 years with like AEW and NXT and SmackDown and Raw and everybody doing good, and then you look at the independents and you got GCW and you got all these amazing independents out there, and then Japan's got their styles changing and everything. So um, it's such an amazing time to be like a fan of professional wrestling. And when I was a kid, I could watch WWF on my local television show and George Championship Wrestling on cable. That was it. And then eventually Southwest Wrestling came on, but then WWE took that over. Nowadays, like as a fan, like every day of the week has a fresh show on, but then you can go on a streaming service and watch 150 indies on one channel, or then a lot of the bigger indies have their own channel. I'm like, man, if a wrestling fan today has the world at their fingertips, and it's like, it's steak, it's lobster, it's full, it's everything all together. So it's just an amazing time for wrestling, and there's so much competition of like who's going to keep everybody's attention the longest, and it's something that every week they're trying to figure out a new way to have a couple more eyes on the product. So it is fast. I agree, but I think the athleticism and ring work of today's talent is just by far so amazing that like these kids want to. They have so much to give, and they want to give it, and they they're not worried about what's going to happen in 20 years. They're not looking at the longevity of it. They're looking at, I'm entertaining people and I am athletic as all get up, and I'm going to show you. And it's amazing. Like some of the stuff they do they make it look so easy. And I'm thinking, man, I couldn't do that when I was, wrestling. I couldn't do that or that or that. Not, I was just a different storyteller than the story that they're trying to tell now. And now I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I totally get it. These young kids, geez. I don't see
Right.
managers. Yeah, I don't see managers as much as I used to. I see it like slowly creeping back in. When I work in Europe, everyone has managers. Like they always have female managers there. It's a whole different game there. But do you still think that sex and violence sells to a degree?
I imagine it does sell. I just don't know, you know, who's going to take the chance of putting, that style on like a major network and stuff like that. But I don't think it would do bad if they did.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be reintroduced. Most of the indies have their deals on Triller, whatever, Fight TV. Then they have these streaming services. Not that streaming is bad, but sometimes if you are in a building and that building has some sort of an issue, your stream is fucked. And I'm telling you this from working with a company that had a streaming issue many times live. And it was a shame because, like, one day the electricity went out in the building. There's no air conditioner. It is a deathmatch tournament, and it was in the middle of July in New Jersey. So you could figure out how that went. I like almost fainted when I was ringside. It was horrible. But it's just one of those things. I know that when ECW had the outage at the building, you guys had kimono dancing on the top of the ECW. Is that how that happened? When kimono won a lady?
I think so. That was before I got there, but I remember it happening, and
Yeah.
they would always play you could get the videotape this week on online. So I was like, oh my goodness, like this is crazy. This is totally something that like it's such a pun, but like they took what wrestling was and where it was, and they just made it to the extreme. Like they're truly like the characters that people played in ECW. They amped up wrestling and turned it up to 100, and yeah, it was like the Wild West. It was wild.
Yeah, I feel as though if ECW was around during the time of the internet, or let's say where things were going viral, definitely everything would have went viral, like almost every day
Oh yes,
from something
yeah.
from matches. I still see stuff from 20 years ago getting posted on TikTok and all. I was like, wait a second, wait, I remember that. It's now it's coming up.
being shown, especially on like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that, or X, or it's being shown to a whole new generation of wrestling fans and wrestlers. Even at my job, I'll have a person we have under contract, and they're learning how to wrestle, but they were a college athlete. They didn't really watch wrestling, but then something comes up on their social media feed, and they're like, "Coach, I just saw this match, and you had bleach blonde hair, and you were bleeding all over. I gotta find this match." And I'm like, I don't think you should watch that one because you're never going to be able to use any of that in today's world. But yeah, it's a whole new generation that's starting to watch what we did in ECW. It's mind blowing to me.
It cracks me up every time I get tagged in that pile driver with Rhino. People are like, "Oh, is she alive? Did she die?" It's like, no, I'm like right here, completely alive and kicking and totally fine, living my best life. So, but that is it true that they outlawed the pile driver?
In WWE, we can't use it. No,
Really?
no. Yeah,
It's
it's
Rhino
been around
though.
for 12, 15 years. Yeah, it's just one of those band moves that we can't use.
I totally get it. It's a very dangerous thing because so many things could happen. Timing is everything. We've seen Francine get injured, like the guys get injured, like everyone's been injured at least once or twice with pro wrestling guys. And do you have a season pass to Disney, by the way?
Oh, I sure do. Yes. Yeah, me and my little son have Disney passes, and we live in North Carolina, but like I'm here in Florida all during the week, so it's like when he's not here with me, I go by myself a lot of times, or I try to grab one of the referees that I bully into going with me. I'm like, come on, let's go to Disney today.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to visualize a grown middle aged guy at Disney, like by himself, like how that translates, how it could translate.
I get a lot of looks because I'll walk around and I'll see people and they got their phone and they're trying to take a picture of their family, and then I'm the idiot that goes, "Hey, would you like me to take a picture?" And they're like looking for my family, but here I am like with my Disney backpack on and everything, and they're like, "Oh my God, this grown old man is gonna run off with our camera." But I love it.
Speaking of little kids, I see Colby Carino's name everywhere. So he just followed in his dad's footstep. Is that what happened?
I think so. I think he was born to wrestle, and he is so amazing to watch, and he is really he is dug in, and just watching him wrestle, some of the stuff that he can do athletically, his old man couldn't ever. He does a little too much of the deathmatch stuff, but that's the it's the dad and me talking, and and if he looks at me and I'm not a real good role model for that because now he's doing it. But yeah, he's everywhere. He does great. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, I remember when he was like a little baby almost. It's just like he was so tiny and he was coming to shows. So taking a kid to a show back then, by the way, is different than when people take kids to hardcore wrestling shows nowadays because there's usually blood and glass and all kinds of shit all over it. Moving right along, yeah, you've done quite a bit with your career. Did you ever think you'd be working in the office at any time, or is this what you've always wanted to help younger talent, which I think is great.
But yeah, I've always wanted to transition into the office, and I've been lucky because when I went to Japan, starting in 2001, they had asked me for like one idea for a match, and I just couldn't give one idea. I had to give like a whole 4 month way of where we could go with it. And I got a spot in the office there working with booking foreigners and helping out with some of the booking and stuff like that. And from there it spiraled into running shows from every once in a while. And then I booked in Puerto Rico for a year for Carlos Colon, and so it's always been. I always like being on the other side of the camera, helping out and trying to figure out, how to tell a great story. And I've had such great teachers along the way. So, it felt like a very natural step to go to right from being an in-ring performer into being a coach and a producer. And it's a whole different ball game too, because it's, being a wrestler, and this from being out there, is like you have all the power. When you go through the curtain, you have all the power. You know how everything's going to go, but like at the end of the day, you have the power. But as like a producer, I can help my guys come up with this match and this and that, and I know the camera shots that I want to get and the timing. But literally, when their music comes on and they go through that curtain, I'm like, oh boy, I have no control over this. And it is so like exhilarating when everything goes right, and it's so deflating when everything goes wrong. But this past 8 years that I've been, a coach and a producer has been like the most fun ride. It is learning so many different things. And, from the time I've gotten to WWE, like there's been so many changes along the way, not just, management and how we do things, but our production and stuff like that. They're always looking for a way to be innovative and stuff like that. So like learning all these things, it's like once I get to I'm pretty good at this one. They're like, okay, we're changing it to this. And I'm like, woo woo. And then I have to learn all over again. And it is like the most fun challenge. And just being a coach and being able to be, a part of these young people's journey from NXT and being recruited. And then they get called up to Raw and SmackDown and they still call you. They're like, coach, what would you do in this part? And I'm like, I don't know. You guys are making money I never made. You tell me what to do so I can pass it on. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, I like the NXT product. I think it opens up a lot of doors for people. I worked with Drake Younger for quite some time in XPW, or Drake Wirtz, whatever name he was. I think he was the heart.
Yeah, I knew him as both. I love Drake. Just
Yeah, he was really great.
sweetheart of a guy.
And then I love seeing Alicia Taylor.
Yeah, Alicia
She was a
Taylor.
ring announcer, I think. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I love seeing what
Yeah,
she's
and
doing
a
as well. It's a great
musician.
product.
She's a
Yeah,
badass.
yep.
Miss Alicia is awesome.
People always forget that she played music. It's like, no, she was like a musician as well. She had a band going
Yeah,
on, so she's very multi-talented. Do you still do appearances as well if people want to meet you?
I barely do appearances. Yeah, maybe once or twice a year. It's just something that, especially with my schedule and stuff, because I'm usually only home on the weekends, so it's like I want to get home and get with the family, and I get the occasional time. Like Colby lives 8 minutes from me, but being an independent wrestler, he's away on the weekends, and then I'm home, and I'm like, hey, you want to hang out? And he's like, oh, Dad, I'm in Arizona. I'm like, Arizona? Yeah, and like Cats in the Cradle song after a while. Uh, so I limited my appearances, so maybe like twice a year, and I always have fun and get to see people that I don't get to see regularly, and get to hear stories and tell stories, and it's so refreshing for the soul to see all of them.
Yeah, it really is. I love doing WrestleCon every year or some of the bigger shows because then you get to see everyone. I get to see Missy Hyatt. I get to see Dawn Marie, like everyone I really like. So hopefully this year will be fun again in Vegas. Do you have any socials people can follow you on?
My socials are so boring. My Instagram is at King Carino, and my Twitter X thing is also at King Carino. I don't put up a lot. I just, and life is so easy. I don't have to go on social media and stuff like that a lot of times. So at King Carino at both Instagram and and TikTok too. But like I don't really put. I sometimes I put videos up and I get into like a thing and I'm like, oh look at that, 4 people have read my stuff. And then I'm like, oh, I'll do another one and I don't. But yeah, I'm going to. I have a lot. I'll eventually do it. But so at King Carino on TikTok.
You could post your Disney videos up there, title What It's Like
Yeah,
to
it's
Be
not weird.
a solo male guest at Disney walking around and just look at everyone's reactions, like reactions to you walking around. Like, yeah, I think it's great. Um, I finally joined TikTok and I post things on there. Like I post some videos, I post daily thoughts. I post this slob like this guy body shaming me at the gym, and I always like he posts there's a guy out there posting videos of me making fun of me, and someone pointed it out, so I let him do it. Then I pull the videos down, then I repost them and I tag him in them. He might have his account
Wow.
canceled at one point sooner than later. Yeah, I know. There's some crazy people out there in this world. So, yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And do you have any messages for your fans or any aspiring wrestlers?
Everyone, thank you. Just, and you know, it's cliche to thank everybody, but like, I, I've been a fan of wrestling for 43 years. And even though I was a wrestler and still in wrestling, like, I'm still a fan. So like, uh, I know how important it is. And, any fan that I've ever, got to perform in front of and everything, I'm so thankful that, you didn't spend your hard-earned money going somewhere else that night. And because if it wasn't for the fans, nobody, this is our crazy business. It is fan driven, and now with the fans going crazy and on all the shows, and they've really become a part of the show again, and it's so cool. And um, it's just awesome. Aspiring wrestlers, easy. Never give up. Never give up. Never. If you want to be on television, everything. Don't let anybody tell you no. Just keep doing it and keep working and keep getting better, and just don't let anybody ever destroy your dream. Not everybody makes it. There's only been what 40 main events of WrestleMania, but man, just being a part of the wrestling business is the coolest thing ever. I never got to work at WrestleMania, but like I still love wrestling, and I still like, one day I want to produce on WrestleMania. That'll be my WrestleMania moment. So, and just don't let anybody tell you can't do it. It's there's not, it's not impossible. Just say I'm possible, and just don't give up. It's a big wrestling world out there, and it's only going to get better.
That's great advice. I like the I am it. I like the impossible. I am possible. That's really good. Now I'm going to live by those words one day. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and sit tight.